This is David Tabb with GV Wire here with U.S. Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, running for the U.S. Senate for California. Loretta, the polls, if you believe in polls, not really looking in your favor. Your opponent, Kamala Harris, has a double-digit lead. How does your campaign react to something like that? How do you change or alter your course and you have 8 days left?
Well, first of all, remember that those aren't really polls. Those are online surveys. And a lot of my vote doesn't go online. It isn't connected digitally. And that's one of the problems that we really have in our society. We have the haves that are in the tech community, and we have those that are sort of left out. And when we look at the Central Valley, you know that there's a lot of need here. And so we believe that if places like the Central Valley and the Inland Empire and the rural counties and Orange County, where I'm from, and quite frankly, San Diego and Los Angeles, if they come and vote and they vote strong, we will actually win this U.S. Senate race.
And another issue, the heavy hitters of the Democratic Party, President Obama, Senators Feinstein and Boxer, they've chosen not to endorse you. Why do you think that is?
Well, the reality is that they chose their candidate way ahead of time. When Senator Boxer said she wasn't going to run, of course, it had been 24 years since we chose a new U.S. senator. They already had my opponent ready to go, and they've all come around her, and in fact they told the rest of us we shouldn't run, that they already had chosen a candidate. So the establishment chose the candidate. But I have a really good rapport with the people of California, and so I'm actually the person that got through the primary in order to win this election.
So if the establishment's already set their candidate, would you say maybe the fix is in?
No, I don't want to say the fix is in, because the people will decide. It's a matter of trying to get the resources to talk to the people, to get out and to see them, to have them awaken to what is happening here. I don't think it's a fixed system. I think those who have ruled the nest, if you will, forever continue to want to rule the nest, and the rest of us have to really fight in order to get a chance and get a seat at the table.
All right, let's talk about issues, since that's what we're here. Can't be in the Central Valley without talking about water. As a U.S. Senator, what would you do to get more water to the Valley farmers?
Well, remember that my opponent said, when asked, what's your water plan for California, she said one word: conservation. End of story. For me, it's conservation, it's water recycling, which is what we have done in my area. We have the largest water recycling plant in the world. We can put that in other places in California. It is about building new infrastructure, especially here, to transfer water down, to hold water when it comes in the heavy rains, whether it's underground or whether it's above ground. We have not invested in water infrastructure since the 1960s, so that's important. In some areas, it will take desalinization, but the main thing that we need for right now, especially for the valley, is to move some of the water that sits up north and move it down here for the people. Because if we don't have water in this area, then we don't have a harvest. And if we don't have a harvest, then we don't have jobs. And if we don't have jobs, people suffer.
Would you be willing to relax EPA regulations to send more water down from the Delta to the Valley?
I have already said that I am in favor of taking a look at everything and placing everything on the table. And for this reason, many of the environmentalists from San Francisco are very angry and really trying to make sure that I don't get elected, because they are worried that I will actually look at what makes sense to bring water to the valley, unlike my opponent.
Now, a couple of statewide issues that are important to the people, obviously in the state and especially here in the Fresno County, Central Valley area. Prop 57, which would allow an easier way to get parole for nonviolent felons. Where do you stand on Prop 57?
Well, I'm completely against Prop 57. Let's look at the history here. So a few years ago, the voters passed Prop 47, and that said that all nonviolent people in our prisons would be moved out, either put at the local jail or given early parole and put out on the street. And crime has risen by about 15% because of that. So by definition, there are only violent criminals left in our prison system. But now my opponent has reclassified what a nonviolent person is a felon, and that is what they are asking us to vote on, whether to allow these new classified nonviolent offenders out on early parole. Let's look at what some of those are. If you discharge a gun on a schoolyard, that's nonviolent. If you do a carjacking with a gun, that's nonviolent, according to Ms. Harris. If you rape somebody and they are unconscious, that is nonviolent. I do not believe that those are nonviolent crimes, and so I am against Proposition 57.
And another issue in a similar realm, the death penalty, up for a vote from the voters next week. Where do you stand on the death penalty?
Well, there are actually two propositions on. One to give less due process and move things faster, and the other one says, look, we know that many people don't get the due process. See, the death penalty is important, but only if you really get a lawyer and you get the due process in the courts. And we know that the poorer you are, the less due process you get in the system, generalizing, of course. And so my answer would be, there's so many people who are on death row who never ever get through the process, and it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to the taxpayers to have them go through all these appeals process. I think it's been like 10 years since we've put someone on death, really to death here in California, and so I would say it's a lot less expensive to just give them life imprisonment and not deal with the death penalty. Also, because there are a lot of people on that we have seen over time now be innocent who are on death row. The due process issue is so important.
So are you in favor of abolishing the death penalty in California?
So I'm in favor of a moratorium on the death penalty until we look at the due process for people, especially people who don't have the funds to hire a lawyer.
All right, and one other issue about, as a U.S. Senator, you'll be dealing with international affairs. Who do you think maybe is the biggest threat to American freedom and democracy? Is it ISIS? Is it Russia? Are you going to keep your eye on?
Yeah. There are actually two. I would say in the long term, the number one is the manifestation is ISIS. But it's three things happening in the Middle East. The traditional Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The second is what we call this Sunni-Shia split among Muslims, and the proxy wars that go on there. That means Iran and Russia versus the United States and Saudi Arabia, for example. And the third thing is the fall of governments and then leaving a lawlessness in place. So those three things coming together in the Middle East are what create things like ISIS, and that is the number one issue that we have to attack. And a very close second is Putin and his aggressiveness on behalf of Russia, especially when we look at Europe and the Baltic states and Ukraine and issues like that.
All right, I'm going to give you a scenario, so indulge me for a moment. Let's say it's a great night for the Democratic Party next week. You are the next U.S. Senator. Hillary Clinton is the next president. Let's say the FBI indicts Hillary Clinton on this email probe. She is impeached by Congress. It goes to you with the U.S. Senate. How would you make your decision whether you vote on the articles of impeachment or not?
Well, as you remember, I actually have been in the United States Congress and did live through one other impeachment, and that was Hillary Clinton's husband, who was at the time Bill Clinton, who was at the time president. So you have to look at the facts as presented to you before the Congress. So we'll have to look at those facts and see whether we would impeach or not. But not knowing, like everybody else, not knowing what's really in those emails right now. I don't like that it's right here, right in the middle of political season, but I do trust in our FBI director that he is trying to do the best job. I trusted him when he said, of the emails that I have seen, there's no reason to move forward on anything against Hillary Clinton. And I trust him now in saying, I promised you guys that if I would see something new, I would reopen it. So I have to trust that he's trying to be as even-handed as possible. What those emails show, I don't know. And I would like to have Americans know what's in there sooner rather than later, because I think it can be an important issue. We don't know. We just don't know. Look, I'm a Democrat. I will be voting for Hillary Clinton, but I'm just as concerned as any other American would be to know the truth of what's going on.
All right, and wrapping it up, Congresswoman Sanchez, give your elevator pitch to the California voters. Why would you be the best U.S. senator?
Experience. I've got 20 years in the Congress. The majority of my colleagues in the House of Representatives, both Republican and Democrats, I'm a Democrat, are supporting me in this race. They were the ones that came to me and said, hey, we need you in the United States Senate. I alone have the military experience. I alone have the 20 years of casting the tough votes. No on the Iraq War when everybody wanted to go. No on the so-called Patriot Act because it took away our civil liberties. And no on the Wall Street bailout because we lost our homes. I am tried and I am tested and I am with the people. Vote Loretta Sanchez for the United States Senate.